in 2026? How do we want to grow? How do we want to get there? There's a lot of tough questions I think we have to ask about the growth of the youth soccer game, about development. Certainly our league is hopefully forging a pathway of excitement for that. And now I think U.S. Soccer, really with this vision, with this announcement of hosting the pinnacle of the game in 8 years, I think really now sets a tone that we can hopefully have some honest dialogue about what we need to do to step on the field when we host in 2026 to be one of the more competitive countries in the world.
Well, and Adrian,
first, how are you getting your second World Cup when our first one was in 1966?
well, it's
and
the
we've
most
not got it
profitable.
since?
It's the most profitable in
Well,
the
that's a
history of World
different thing.
Cups.
Are we talking about money or are we talking about the game? So really disappointed in terms of England not being there again. Like everybody, I've been here 11 years now. I class this as home. Really excited about the announcement today, and I think it'll come at another important, probably another 8 years, the growth of the game in this country. And as Manny said, I'm probably more excited about this. The young batch of players are coming through than a lot of American people by the sounds of it. I think the appointment of the next coach is going to be huge, going to be so important to decide what type of team they want to deliver. But it's going to be a huge shot in the arm for the game in this country again.
Well, and I think it was something.
Road, we're going to measure where U.S. soccer is and where this game is, obviously in this country and in North America. And obviously, being a part of the MLS for more than 7 years now, I've seen this league grow tremendously, but we have a long ways to go. And in 8 years from now, we want to be one of the top leagues, obviously, in the world. And that measuring stick will be brought to our backyard in 2026.
Well, and I think Don Garber had an announcement.
The few sports globally that the entire country tends to really rally around the pride of the country via the vehicle of soccer. So there's no doubt that's why it's a little bit painful when the start of this World Cup that we're not represented in the U.S. But at the same time, all of us as athletes or former athletes, there is such an excitement the day before the tournament because we know that all these teams all believe that they can make a special run in this tournament, and all these players know that they're on the stage, not only representing themselves or their teammates, but they know they're representing their entire country. And you get it. You get the feeling of the tournament behind those players when they step on that field.
Well, and that's what's so cool. You see all the features that have been
age, and I started to really love of the game and what it was West Germany in them days in the quarterfinals, and then getting beat 3-2. The then Stoke City goalkeeper, the team that I supported as a kid, had Gordon Banks, and he went downhill. And then Peter Bonetti came in, took Bobby Charlton off at half-time, trying to save him for the semi-final. And as per usual, didn't even get to the semi-final. We get beat on penalties by Germany, So, yeah, it's not been kind to us on a few occasions. Normally quarters, maybe semis, and we normally go out on penalties. It's normally to Germany, which makes it even worse.
well, I know Cal.
I've been in this country when Landon scored the goal against, was it Algeria?
Yes.
On the quick counter-attack.
Yes.
I was in Austin at the time, and people talk about Austin, is it it's a college football town. If you'd have been there that day, it was like the whole of Austin was out in the high street, and people were going crazy. So since I've been in the States, that was probably the most memorable U.S. soccer moment for me.
Ethan, do you have one?
Mine is 2002, throwing it way back, actually, because that was the first World Cup that I really think experienced watching with my dad, getting up crazy times in the evening or early morning. And that was just the run that the U.S. made, but really just the final, the Germany-Brazil final, and how special that was and how great Ronaldo was, and he was my favorite player at the time, just pretty much the whole tournament, but how good he was in the final there. Doing a scissors over Oliver Kahn. I mean, that's kind of a special moment that will always resonate to me.
He did that on everybody.
Gray hair. I think like Adrian, the 82 and 86 World Cups was an age where it just resonated me. I fell in love with the sport. The French teams of those eras I really loved and really loved the way they played. I think maybe from a United States perspective, just the qualifying in 1990 and really, for 40 years of not having qualified for World Cups and just how we had to, score a really special goal to get there. And then I think it was just when the sport wasn't so big, but you were following it, and such a sense of pride that you had that, U.S. is now going to be on the world stage finally after 40 years.
And did well, Manny.
And did very well.
Yeah,
yes.
no, you look at it, was it at the Italy game?
Yeah, Italy game, we battled. I think we ended up losing 1-0. We did have a tough game against Czechoslovakia, 5-1 to open. But in the end, essentially it was like the 84 hockey team where it was essentially college kids playing in a professional in tournament and still battled and did pretty well. So, but I think the 82 and 86 are right at those ages where you really fall in love with the sport. And that's what I get excited about because I know there's so many kids that are going to just fall in love with soccer via this next month of soccer.
And we have a lot of retired national team players that were tweeting today about, I can't wait till my kids watch that World Cup in 2026, and it's going to do for them what it did for me how many ever years ago in 1994. So it'll be cool to kind of see that come back around. Now back to the present.
No, I was just going to say, and that's another generational thing in 8 years' time. Most of these kids who will probably be really in love with the game, they're starting now.
Yep.
They're watching the growth of the MLS now. So it's going to be pretty cool for them kids because they'll be into it big time.
Yeah, I do think we have to mention, he said 2002, and we do have our native, Tony Sana, who had such a great World Cup in 2002, and to me was one of the players of the tournament, and especially against that game against Germany in the quarterfinals where I thought rightfully we should have had a result, and we didn't.
Absolutely.
It was great to see him do well.
Penalty kick.
Yeah, very tough.
Oh, here we go again. again.
As long as you guys don't go to penalty kicks, you'll be all right, huh?
We'll be okay, yeah. Do it in the 90 or in the extra time.
Well, fortunately, we're all going to be hanging out here, not heading to Russia. I don't know if that's fortunate or unfortunate. I know you said you were supposed to maybe go to Russia and cancel the trip once the MLS break shortened up here. But looking at this World Cup that is going to start tomorrow with the first match, Saudi Arabia against Russia, do you guys have a favorite in this tournament? And so many things can happen during it. Of course, injuries. Spain fires their head coach 2 days before the tournament starts after he's hired on at Real Madrid. So do you guys have a favorite and a dark horse? Just given to me both at the same time.
Yeah, I'll go first. Argentina is my favorite. I just think they got so close last year, and I just think the team is primed and ready to go. I think it's the last thing that Messi needs to accomplish to be known as the greatest.
Or he's going to retire from international football.
Or he's going to retire,
again.
exactly.
Yeah.
My dark horse, I don't know if it's much of a dark horse. I got two. I got a dark horse to win would be Belgium. I think it's a team that has plenty of individual talent. They're in a tough group. They could have a tough way as they get closer to the finals, but I could see them making a run to the final. And then I think Peru. Peru is going to make some noise in this tournament. Everything that happened with their captain, with the drug ban, and then it being rescinded, they got something to fight for. They a little bit of a vendetta, revenge. So that's a team I think will make it to the next round.
I think Spain. Obviously, I don't know what's going to happen.
But sometimes it gives them a rallying cry, right? It's something to play
it does.
for
I just think that the politics of Yaro being Mr. Real Madrid, it's going to be difficult. But I honestly believe it's their last go. If you look at the team, we can virtually pick the team that's going to take the field. You know, it's the last one for Piqué, for Sergio Ramos, for Busquets, for Iniesta. So I just think that if they can all bring that together, they'll take something to beat. I think Senegal, you know, they've got some really good attacking pieces. They're very athletic. I think they'll get out to that group, which will probably come at the expense of Poland. And I say it and I do it every time, and I swear I'm never going to get caught up on it. I think England are quietly going to do better than people think. No, I do. And I also think Peru as well. You know, we've been down there a couple of times and we've seen some of their players, and it's strange. I'm listening to the radio coming in today. It's the English radio. Mm-hmm. The most fans that anybody's seen is Peru, because it's been a long time since they've been at this stage, and this is probably their little golden generation since the early 70s. So I'm a bit like Ethan. I think they might upset one or two people.
Two follow-ups to that. First of all, doesn't England have like a World Cup anthem or something that they kind of put out there before?
We always have a World Cup anthem, yeah.
And second of all, being a manager, and you just named all those veterans for Spain, and it's kind of their last go-around. When you have a group like that, how much does the coach coach?
Well, I think the most important thing, one thing that Yero has, he was an incredible player. He's won everything there is to win in the game. Probably the only thing he hasn't done is the World Cup. So he'll have enormous respect as soon as he walks in the door. Whether this Real Madrid-Barcelona thing, because having lived in Spain and Manny's lived there, it's a real thing. This is not a made-up rivalry between them two clubs. And he's very much known as a Real Madrid man. So if he can overcome that, I think there's enough quality and enough experience within that group to go as far as they actually want to go.
Manny?
Well, I kind of like that nobody's picked Brazil and Germany, and I'm going to continue with that trend and not pick them because I think they're two favorites, and I'd like to see somebody else win besides those two powerhouses. So I'm going to go with France. You know, I really think if they can get it together, which is always a big if, I think they have so much talent and quality in the field that they can really, if they just hit it the right time, I think they're a force to be reckoned with. My heart's with Spain. Partly because of my family lineage. But like Adrian said, it's a little tougher after the last couple of days because I've seen this for several decades where they can't quite unify as a country to really rally to play. I mean, that was why it was so great in 2010 to see him win finally. And then a dark horse, I'm going to definitely overthink this and say Poland. Maybe it more has to do with climate. Maybe it more has to do with...
So Senegal's no good then.
No, well,
you're in the same group.
Or to you, Poland, one of the two. I think out of that group, I think I have Colombia and Poland going through.
Okay.
But again, I think Poland is a very, very tough team right now. Again, and I think I'm overthinking it, like climate, like Russia. Maybe that gives them a little bit more of a home field advantage.
One question I think will be answered in this World Cup. Is Lionel Messi the greatest player of all time, or is he just the second best player in Argentinian history? Because until he wins something with Argentina, he will never in that country be classed as better than Maradona.
What about in the world? I mean, how will we view him if he never wins a major trophy?
Well, I think the one thing I'll say is that if you look at the World Cup that Argentina won with Maradona, it's arguably the worst team one of the worst teams they've ever had. So for him, to Maradona single-handedly drag that team to the final like he did in Mexico, you know, he's got to do it because, as Ethan said, if that team puts it all together with Messi as the talisman, arguably the strongest squad in the World Cup.
Yeah, I think it's exciting because we have the greatest player of this generation, and he's really done it for the most part at the club level. And the reality over the last several decades is you're not just judged on what you do at your club level, but also in these World Cups. Zinedine Zidane won his country the World Cup and is now considered one of the greatest players of all time.
Ronaldo,
Brazil,
yes. Brazil. All the best players of their generation have done it. Yeah. And for me, it will always be the little asterisk alongside his name, which seems crazy because he's, you know, you watch him play and he's incredible. But, you know, you can't say he's going to be the greatest player of all time if he's not the best player in his own country.
Yes. Yep.
So, and you hear that actually. I've asked a former player that I played with, Federico Higuain. I said, you know, isn't Messi just the best of? He said, no. And he grew up in this generation. It's Maradona. Yeah. And until Messi wins a World Cup, he won't even be entered into that conversation. And that's kind of coming from their side of the culture and how they've been raised and grown up. So for him to be known for generations as the best, I think he has to raise the trophy.
Well, and I think in his own mind, I mean, we heard him say it after the Olympics that he was going to retire. You know what I mean? He was done with international football if he doesn't win and doesn't represent his country like he wants to. So I think in his own mind, he'll put an asterisk next to his name if he doesn't win.
And you can never underestimate the pressure the guy's under. Like me and Manny have been down there recently, down to Argentina. Incredible football nation. The only thing that people talk about. So he has it every day at Barcelona, and then, you know, summer comes round and he's got this again for another month. And, you know, that's cometh the hour, cometh the man. This is the time for him.
Well, that's what happens when you do a photo shoot with a goat. I mean, that was a little. I can't believe you actually agreed to do that. But you know, I guess if you're going to label yourself as the greatest of all time and do a photo shoot with a goat, you probably should win the World Cup. So, moving on, players to keep an eye on that maybe people aren't thinking of, or maybe that are going to step their game up to the next level. We just talked about Messi. Everyone knows kind of about the stars and the studs in the World Cup. Do you each have a player maybe off the radar that people should keep an eye on and take a look at? You
know, the one player actually that I actually played against him down in Sao Paulo about a year and a half ago is Peruvian Christian Cueva. A number 10 there. He's 26 years old. Was an unbelievable player. After the game, I thought, who is this guy? I didn't know anything about him, whatnot. And I just think he could be a guy that you'll end up seeing go to Europe after this World Cup if Peru has a really good World Cup. And then the other kind of group I look at is the young England squad, right? Just some of the guys like Rashford, you know, some of these guys, the right back, the kid from Liverpool. You know, how are those guys going to show on this kind of stage? They've had really good individual seasons with their club. You know, how do they do at the international level?
Yeah, I think, but like Ethan there, I think that Cueva's a top talent. It's interesting for me whether England actually go with Sterling or they go with Rashford. You know, Raheem Sterling's had a great year for Manchester City. I think 23 goals. Rashford, you saw in the last game, you know, when he played against Costa Rica, is incredible talent. But there will be somebody in this tournament that we've not really heard of who will come to the forefront. A couple of years ago, it was James Rodriguez. Yes. Suddenly, he gets the incredible move to Real Madrid. There's going to be somebody that we probably don't know. It may be from Brazil because they normally unleash one, whether it's Gabriel Jesus. You know, there'll be somebody that we've not really heard of who will suddenly take this tournament by storm. Normally an African player as well at times.
I'm really excited, and it's not quite a dark horse, but it is on the international stage just because he's had such an amazing year. I'm really excited to see how Salah does in the World Cup. I really want him to get healthy. I really want him to be able to show what he can do. I don't think people really understand how big he is in a certain part of the world where billions of people are literally following him every day, every moment, following his injury. And I think it's so important that hopefully he can get healthy and play well, because I think that's going to inspire an entire region that just wants soccer to keep going this way.
Another one, Manny, can I just throw in?
Yeah.
Eden Hazard.
Yeah.
Is he going to be just a really good international player, or can he get over the hump and be the guy that Real Madrid go after the World Cup? Because they normally do go, he's our guy.
Yeah, and then I got to throw in from our region, I'm really excited to see our Costa Ricans, you know, Johan and Calvo, and really step on the world stage, and a very, very tough group. And you know, there's a lot of expectations in Costa Rica now because of the run they had 4 years ago. And can they do it again? I'm excited to see our guys step in the field and see what they can do.
Well, sometimes I think it's tough to pull the emotion out of these guys when they're in the midst of it. We talked to Francisco Calvo a lot before he headed to the World Cup, and he had a lot of media around him asking, what's that going to feel like? What it'll be like? What's it going to feel like to be in Russia? But until he steps off the plane there, and you see what this World Cup means to some of the other players, as we've seen videos on social media, and when they do get injured and they're crying and they're in tears, like Salah when he got injured in that game with the shoulder. So I think Calvo, it'll be fun to watch him, and he's very prevalent on social media and on Instagram and stuff, to see what that emotion is like when you finally step off the plane, you're in Russia, and you're stepping on the field for your first game. Is that just, you've talked about it, and now you're actually doing it. How different is that?
Well, I think it's very different, obviously, because, you know, you're not only representing your country at the international level, you're in a competition that you've worked so hard for, you know, 4 whole years, qualification, a whole process, and then obviously individually, you know, trying to keep your form. And, you know, he's done that to keep his form to stay within the team. And, you know, he's one of the special 23 for Costa Rica that'll be a part of it, as well as Johan Venegas. And it's exciting. It's really exciting for them. It's great for us to be able to kind of be represented, obviously, on the international stage. And, you know, I can't imagine, you know, what they're feeling and the pride that they're feeling, not only for their country, but, you know, to be able to represent us.
And what do you think, knowing Calvo and kind of his personality? And
well, he's going to have to play well. He got the Serbians, he got Brazil, and he got Switzerland, so it ain't going to come easy for him. No, I think the one thing about the Costa Ricans, I think they know what they are. I think when they go too far away from what they are, they play 5 at the back, they play 4 in front of it with 1 up front. They don't give much away. And if they can keep to the game plan, and I think, do they play Serbia in the first game?
Yep.
That's a huge game
Huge
for them.
Huge game.
You know, it's a big game for the Serbs, but if Costa Rica could get something from that game and then maybe get something against Switzerland, the Brazil game might not matter. So it's going to be tough for them. It's a tough group. The other thing I want to talk about is Iceland.
Yeah.
330,000 people. And they, you know, they got to the quarterfinals, the semi-finals of the Euros, knocking the mighty England out in the European Championship. So that's an incredible story. It'll be interesting to see if that was just a one-off for them, or actually can they play against Croatia, Nigeria, and Argentina and give them a game? Because when you look at the size of the country, it's an incredible story.
It's amazing when you kind of have that adrenaline and that support of your country. And we, once again, when we talk about social media, we're able to see all these things, the videos that had come out of Iceland after that and what they were doing.
Oh, I actually really like it from a soccer discussion, even a development discussion, especially if we personalize it to this market in the Twin Cities. I always say, you know, we're probably more similar to Iceland than California in terms of how we should be looking at developing soccer players and soccer coaches. So to see a country like that, the size like that, show that they can build and grow to the world stage, it's exciting. And it's fun to follow as a fan. But I actually think there's a lot of similarities that we should be looking at in terms of why they're successful. And I think we can apply that to our market here in Minnesota.
So we just briefly hit on Francisco Calvo, Costa Rica, making it to the World Cup. But going back, Manny, to MLS, 19 players from MLS in the World Cup this year. I believe in the last World Cup, there were 21, but 10 of them were on the United States men's national team. So that just tells you right now the growth of this league. Can you speak to that a little bit?
I mean, it is meteoric. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We're becoming one of the better leagues in the world. We are definitely going to continue on that trajectory of having more and more players that every 4 years are going to be represented throughout the entire world. It's such a global game. Our league is becoming a massive global league. And again, I think it just shows where the league is heading. And I think it's positive because I think all of our local fans who are probably following a player or two from each team are excited to root not only for their own country, but also for the country that represents their club.
Not just the numbers that are coming internationally, but the talent that MLS is attracting?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's happened over the last sort of 5 or 6 years has been the sort of influx of Central and South America ones at a younger age. You know, players not coming at 34 for the last payday in the league. You look at what Atlanta have done with the Argentinians and Paraguayan and Almiron and Barco, and then you look at the US has probably done, the MLS has probably done more for Costa Rican football than any region.
Panama as well.
Panama, yeah. So it's helping the growth of the games in them areas as well. So now it's you know, the commissioner had a dream of it being, what was it, the 5th best league by 2020. I think he's well on the way. You know, I thought it was interesting this week that Pep Guardiola's assistant decides he wants to be the manager of New York City.
Yep.
That would never have happened. He wouldn't even thought about that 10 years ago. So onwards and upwards, I think.
Well, and that's a great, I mean, not to get off the World Cup subject, but for having him come in after Vieira leaves MLS, you know what I mean? I think the fact that...
Standard.
Exactly.
The quality of the people who are prepared to come and work here now.
Mm-hmm. Ethan, how have you seen it change over time as you've been in the league?
Well, I think when I came in the league, it was known as the little bit of the retirement league. The DPs were guys who were on their last leg. You know, they came in after a World Cup and, you know, they got their big payday kind of thing, and they were selling jerseys. You know, now we're bringing in players that are still in their prime, in their mid-20s, and they have a couple contracts ahead of them still, and they're competing still internationally with their club. And we're not afraid of that. I think clubs were maybe a little bit afraid of spending that money and risking that. And I think the way the league has been run over the last 4 or 5 years, you know, they've given clubs the opportunity to take the risk, to go after some big-name players and bring them to our league, and I think it's paying dividends. Is
there any one player in MLS that stands out to you that when they signed, maybe in the last 2 to 3 years, that you're like, wow, that's going to raise the attention of this league, not just in the United States, but overseas or wherever they came from? Because then they go back and they talk to their former teammates or people in their country and say, this is where you want to be. You want to come to MLS.
Well, I think the one player I think that has changed it, unfortunately, is not playing in the World Cup from Paraguay, Almiron.
Oh, absolutely. Isn't it crazy that Atlanta doesn't have a single player in the World Cup? Some of it's just the fact that the countries didn't make it, but you look at that roster.
It's because the countries didn't make it, because Almiron, to me, is exactly what you said. I mean, he's really shifted in terms of the level of play, and again, being one of the best players in South America at the time, and choosing to come to MLS, I think has now opened up the pathway for a lot of players to see this as a opportunity instead of Europe, or to a pathway to go to Europe through MLS.
Giovinco for me. I think he was 26, 27 when he arrived. Been the best player in the league for me the last 2 or 3 years. I think he might be under threat from Mr. Almiron at this moment in time. But the fact that he left Juventus, one of the biggest clubs in the world, to go to Toronto, and even Michael coming back when he's playing for Roma. And by the way, he was playing for Roma. Wasn't a squad player. You know, one of the great teams of Europe. I think that's been an incredible plus for the league. I really do. And even Zlatan coming where he's done, maybe getting on and old, but in terms of a name and wanting to come in and make a mark on the league, I think it speaks volumes for the league. I really do.
Yeah, I think David Villa coming here, I think when I thought he came, I thought, man, this guy really going to score 50-plus goals over the next couple of years? And he's done it. And he's really actually changed that dynamic of that team. I don't think they would have had the success they've had over the last 3 to 4 years without him. He has not only done it individually, but he's brought the collective along with him, and I think that's pretty special for a guy who's played at some of the biggest clubs in the world. And, you know, still, I'm sure talks to the guys that played for Spain. And I think you'll see some of these guys that possibly on their last leg at Real Madrid and Barcelona, you'll see those kind of names start to come over here and make a difference in our league.
When we talk about players in the World Cup, when we hit on, you know, Ronaldo and Messi and some of those names, we hit on some of the dark horses that maybe people don't know out there. My definition of a great player is always someone that you know exactly what they're going to do, and they still do it. You know, you as a defender, you see him coming at you, you know, or Messi, you put 3 guys on him, he still finds a way to get it done. Is there someone on these teams in the World Cup, if you had to pick one player that you're like, this is what makes them great, this is why they are at the level that they are at?
I still think the one thing is that when Messi gets it, he's going to dribble, cut in on his left foot and bend it in the bottom corner. Everybody knows it. Everybody they play, Iceland, Croatia, Nigeria, will all go, show him inside on his left foot and we'll get bodies in there. Still manages to score and get his shot off. I think it'd be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing Antoine Griezmann. I think, can he make that step up from being top player at Atletico Madrid to an international, because it's the next stage. That's going to be interesting. But as I say, I'm really looking forward to the one player that we probably don't know, that after the World Cup everybody will be talking about.
I think the question's a good one, because I think Messi's the easy answer. It's also a stressful answer, because there's going to be a lot of pressure on for him to carry Argentina. I mean, if we're talking about global stars, I'm excited to see if Neymar's healthy and can do it as well, because he's another guy that when he's healthy, he's very difficult to stop, but he hasn't had quite the year or years that Messi had. So there's a lot of pressure on him after getting injured in 2014 to see if he can come back now and carry Brazil, who is the favorite, by the way, entering the tournament. So, and then I like to see other guys, stars like Hazard. You know, again, this is a Belgian team that has top to bottom has the quality to do it.
You look at that roster.
It's amazing.
It's the best.
Insane.
This is the best Belgium team of all time.
Of all time.
If they
can play
perform.
together.
I mean, their front four is unbelievable. You go
and
Lukaku,
even the guys underneath.
De Bruyne. Yeah, De Bruyne. Like, who's the guy who was playing in Napoli?
Mertens.
Mertens, yeah.
And then you got Carrasco, who probably won't play, who's was Atletico Madrid's player of the year before. So, no, this is a golden generation for them, but they've got to prove, because one or two Belgium teams have in the past made it to semi-finals and got there.
So I think Hazard is that type of player that, you know, can do it. You said, I know I can stop him, but he just goes by you. But at the same time, you know, he hasn't quite done it on the national stage, and especially in a World Cup like this, where there's a little cynicism about that Belgium will somehow crumble throughout the tournament.
Well, and Ethan, you've probably played against players like that, national team or MLS, where you look at them and every time you know they're coming at you, know exactly what they're going to do, and they do it anyway. Who would be your player in the World Cup that would be that this is why they're so great?
Well, I've been watching for the last 8-9 months Mo Salah just do the same exact thing. I mean, you can look at his 30-plus goals this year and just say, wait, it's on replay, right? I'm watching the same goal over and over. And he can just get to his left, and he can get back to his right, and then back onto his left so quickly. And the way he's able to shape his body, his ability to manipulate defenders over the last year, from what I've been able to watch, he's a guy that is just super, super special. And if you're defending him, you need to be swarming him with 2, 3 guys, because it's the only way you'll stop him.
Talking of knowing what players are going to do, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Sergio Ramos will get 3 or 4 yellow cards and will foul every centre forward that he plays against.
Man,
Call by Crook.
Yeah. After that
and
foul
score a
line.
couple goals.
Score a couple of important goals. With
Score a very big goal is what will happen, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, and having been on teams, we just talked about Belgium and their roster, top to bottom, fantastic. But how important is it that they still have to have the chemistry to play and perform? I think we've all been on teams, or you've coached teams or managed teams, that you can put all the talent in the world on one roster, 1 through 11, 1 through 18. You still have to have the right pieces chemistry-wise to make it work. So if you had to go back to the history of the World Cups, was there any team, top to bottom, best roster out there, and they just absolutely tanked?
Well, on Manny's team, France, they did it in the Euros where they didn't train for 2 days, didn't want to speak to the coach. They have internal ones. The Dutch have always managed to somehow
mess it up.
But yeah, you know,
the Dutch not being here is just in general.
Yeah.
But that gives you an idea. And for me, Manny, I think that France should get out of that group. But for me, is can they spend a month without internally imploding?
Yeah.
Because if they can, they have a squad of players that are capable of going all the way.
I think what happens is you have some players in these rosters who the entire roster, each player is worth maybe $50 to $60 million. And that is a massive amount of egos that you have to kind of deal with throughout the entire tournament. That's 11 players that can only play it, start the game, 18 that can only suit up, and you have another 4 that are really upset. And ultimately, there's some countries that cannot deal or come together and think about the whole as opposed to themselves as individuals, particularly when they're making a lot of money on their club side. So, again, I'm hopeful of France. I think they've grown up. I think they've got a coach that I think is aware of their past psychology. But it will be interesting. By the way, I do want to have a quick mention about Uruguay, by the way. I think this is another one of those countries that you're just amazed how they get so much out of every single thing
flying under the
they
radar
do.
a little bit.
A little bit. They're getting a little bit older. I think they're probably the center of the midfield. People are worried about whether they can actually keep up within the game. Certainly offensively and defensively, I think there's amazing players. But ultimately, this is another country that I think most World Cups finds a way to be a danger, finds a way to win games and get through and really show a tiny country like theirs that they can have a big name on a big stage.
It's a tough region actually to get out of. I mean, the fact that Chile's not here, a team that is probably one of the better teams in the region, we would have said 2-3 years ago, and they didn't even make it, right? So yeah, I think that's a great one that you're right. Nobody's really talking too much about.
Did your jaws drop when Italy didn't make it? I mean, we talk about the U.S. not making it into the World Cup, but you have a country not even looking at the roster, but just the history and how long it's been since they haven't made it.
I think the biggest problem Italy have got at this moment in time, that they haven't got a natural goal scorer. They haven't got somebody that that when Italy play, this is the guy. Everybody thought Balotelli was going to go from this, who exploded onto the scene. He's imploded every season, it seems, wherever he's been. So if you haven't got goal scorers, and that's the thing for me, if I look at all this, if Argentina, if Messi and Higuain, whoever it may be, you look at Brazil, if Jesus and if Neymar has a good World Cup, they're the teams that can go the furthest because they've got goal scorers and match winners. And go to Manny's point, Uruguay, Suarez, Edison Cavani. They've got people who can get them a goal out of nothing. When they don't play well, they can actually find a way of winning by a bit of individual brilliance. And I think that's what makes the difference over a tournament.
And looking at the groups in general, we've talked quite a bit. Do you guys have a group of death? I know everyone, all the pundits and the media pundits always name one. If you looked at these groups, do you guys have a group of death?
I think it's probably Group E. I think the Brazil, Switzerland, Costa Rica, Serbia is just that group, those teams, and I think people will probably sleep on Costa Rica who don't know their history. But 2014 World Cup, they made a heck of an amount of noise. So Serbia is a good team. They've got good players. Switzerland they're always there. They've got talent individually, but
is Jerry going to be wearing his flag for the next month? Is he just not going to wear the Minnesota United gear and just wear the flag?
He would have had a Minnesota strip on if the US should have been there. I think the other group for me, which is quite interesting, is Group H. Probably not the team that's going to win the tournament, but it's a difficult group to call because Japan although they've had the last 2 or 3 games have not been good, will be really well organised and will get after it, certainly early on in the tournament. Senegal, I think, could be a dark horse. And you know that Colombia have great talent. And Manny's already mentioned Poland. That would be difficult to pick which 2 are going to come out. It's 2 out of 3 for me.
I don't think there's a group of death. I mean, I think maybe it's because Italy didn't qualify and the U.S. didn't qualify and the likes of Chile didn't qualify to really strengthen maybe traditional powers to add a 3rd team here. But I think overall, most of the groups for me, there's 2 favorites and 2 underdogs. And that's not to say the favorites are going to go through. But I don't feel like there's a group where I'm like, okay, you know, that's the 2 favorites. That's the 2 more favorites. Oh, my God, all 4 of them should go through. So
here we go then. Let's pick the 2 out of each group who are going through.
Yeah, we can do that.
Who you got?
So in Group A, and then we'll go across. I've got Russia and Uruguay from Group A.
I will go along with that, although why I'm picking Russia, only because they're at home and the emotion of playing at home.
Well, you don't have to, by the way.
No, I'm going to do. But
I don't
sure. I think this is arguably, in my lifetime, it's the worst Russian team I can remember.
I agree.
But playing at home might just get them through.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Uruguay and Egypt.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah.
The home
Finlay,
side
I want
out
to
early.
Yeah.
All
Group B,
right,
you going?
Well, we got Kyndra's got to go
Kendra,
here,
then,
too.
yeah.
Well, I would actually also go with I'm going to go with Egypt and Russia.
Okay.
I'm going to leave Uruguay
All
out
on
of this
the
one.
Mo Salah bandwagon.
Yes, I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah.
I'm fully on it.
Group B then, go on then on you, Ethan.
I'm going to go Spain, Portugal.
Yeah, I'm saying.
Yeah. Spain, Portugal, and Portugal squeezed through. Morocco and Iran give up a good fight, but Spain and Portugal.
You can't go against Spain and Portugal.
Yeah.
I'm going both. See?
Yep. See, I'm going to go on here. I'm going to go France and Peru.
I second it. France, Peru.
I'm going to go France and Denmark. So I as much as I love Peru, guys, they have to get out of a group for me to actually pick them.
No
eventually.
love for the Aussies?
You know, they're so similar to the U.S., but no love
They
for
might
the
go 0
Aussies.
for 3.
Yeah.
I'm going to go same, France and Peru.
Ooh, wow. A lot of Peru
Yeah.
fans here.
Yeah.
Okay.
For Australia.
All right, Group D, Argentina, Iceland, Croatia, Nigeria. Ethan.
Yeah, I'll start us. I'm going to go Argentina, Croatia.
Me too. I think the game, obviously the big one will be, I think that Iceland will be better than people think and will be competitive in all 3 games. But I just think the Croatia-Nigeria game will be the test. And I just think Croatia will have a little bit more class and a little bit more experience than Nigeria.
I got Croatia and Argentina as well, so I'm not going
I
to say
do
anything
too.
about it. You guys
Yep.
are right. We're
Yep.
That's the
Same.
first time we're agreeing.
All
Agreeing.
4, yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
All right,
So
Group
that
B.
group's going to be a...
For sure. That means for sure it's Nigeria and Iceland.
Nigeria and Iceland will go
It's
through.
going to be the
probably.
major upset where Argentina doesn't even make it out of group.
Exactly.
Come on now.
Group B.
Group B. This has been a tough one
Ooh,
for me.
that
I've
is a
gone
tough
back
one.
and forth. I think Brazil's the easy one to pick, and I'm going to go with Serbia. I think just for some reason they'll find a way. I'm not exactly sure why, but nobody talks about them, so.
No, I'm going Brazil and Serbia as well. I think...
I don't like how much we're agreeing.
I know. The Serbia-Switzerland game will be will be the real one, and the Costa Rica playing first. Can they stick to the game plan? And if they do, they're going to make it difficult for Serbia in the first game. But if Serbia come through that, I think it'll be them and Brazil.
I'm going Brazil, Costa Rica.
I like it. I'm going Brazil, Switzerland. So we've switched it up a little bit. I do think though Costa Rica against Serbia really sets the tone for that group, 100%.
Yep.
By the way, I mean, is Brazil motivated? I mean, losing 7-1 in the semifinal at home, getting absolutely crushed in the last World Cup. I feel like I know that was 4 years ago, but you gotta.
If you look a little bit down the road, if they are to get out, and obviously you assume Germany gets out, depending on who takes 1-2 in those 2, we could have an early reunion of that game. So.
And let's be honest, it was 7-0. I mean, we'll give them that late. We'll give them that late goal. But all right, Group F, Adrian.
Germany and Sweden.
Wow.
I think that they will be too physically strong for Mexico.
Manny.
Well, I'm noticing a lot of anti-CONCACAF sentiment from Adrian here, but I'm going to go with Germany, Mexico. And I think South Korea may sneak in there. Again, Mexico has gone out of the group 6 straight times and then lost in the round of 16. So I'll keep that trend going, just barely over South Korea.
Ethan.
Yeah, I'll second that. I'm going to go with Germany, Mexico.
Same.
Yep.
All right, Group G.
Group 3, I have Belgium and...
Hey,
Oh.
you
You
don't-
say
Tunisia.
if
You
you
want to
even think
No,
about
no,
this, there's something seriously wrong.
I'm gonna give the young guys from England a chance to show a little bit and get their country excited about
Is
a
there
run.
any chance Panama makes a little bit of noise there or no?
No.
No.
Well, they'll have to play better than they just did in this European tour where they were
Yeah,
dreadful.
They didn't score a goal, right?
No, and I think did they get beat by Northern Ireland 3-0 or something?
I think so, yeah.
So I think England's problem, and I'm not already throwing something at them now. Tunisia played Spain last week, and Spain scored in the 90th minute.
Yep.
Apparently, defensively, they were so well organised, very big and athletic. So the first game, which is always cagey, England have to get off to a good start because they don't want to be going into the pressure game with Belgium, having not won the first game. But for me, England and Belgium comfortably go through the group.
I'll say England and Belgium, and I think England will actually win the group. So we'll see.
There you go.
Look at he's trying to get back in your
Yeah,
good
you go,
graces.
there
Yeah, I'm going same Belgium and England. How about Group H, final one here? We've talked about Senegal. It could be tougher than people expect.
Not
Yeah.
for me.
Well, I am.
Not for you.
I'm going Colombia to win the group, followed by Senegal.
I've got Poland to win it and Colombia going through as well.
Poland to win the group.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm actually going to go Poland and Senegal. I just think it'll be a weird group. I don't have much faith in Colombia.
I'm going with Colombia and Senegal. I think it'll be an interesting group. I think all of these that's why we play the games. I know it's like that cliche saying that's why we play the game, but that's what makes the World Cup so amazing. And I was looking at some stats when we got the '94 World Cup here in the United States. Somebody wrote an article saying it was like Africa getting a downhill ski tournament. The fact that the United States was hosting a soccer tournament. So how much times has changed and the attention. In 2014, 30 million people watched the final in the United States alone. More people from the United States have bought tickets for this World Cup in Russia than any other country aside from Russia itself. So I think as we talk about the excitement, and of course Brit's Pub is going to be jumping every single day for matches. They've got this Jumbotron that they've just purchased here on the end of the bowling lawn. So is there one game out of all these that you guys are most looking forward to, that you are absolutely not going to miss, be glued to your TV?
Well, I think it's Friday. Portugal play Spain, which is a rivalry for them too. They don't like each other. That'll be interesting. Cristiano Ronaldo going against his teammate Sergio Ramos. So early on, and then obviously when they get to the knockout stage and when the group stage is finished, and we suddenly look at where people have finished first or second, because that depends. You play first and second in the other group. I'm hoping that we can win the group because we would then avoid Germany in the quarterfinals if we got through, because I don't want to lose to them again on penalties. So that for me would be something to look forward to. And obviously Brazil, if they got the revenge at some stage of playing Germany, would be interesting.
I think for me, maybe it's not a game, but I had the pleasure of working the 2006 World Cup in Germany and calling those games. And to me, it's the second game of the opening rounds. To me, is by far the most enjoyable part of the World Cup. It really resonates because you have teams that either have to win because they lost their first game. If they lose, they're out of the tournament. You have teams that have won and want to just win and get through and be done with it and move on. And you have teams that have tied and they have to get something out of the game to really go through. So for me, maybe it's not a game, but that second game of the World Cup for me, and there's so many teams that are still playing, is still my favorite time of the World Cup.
Well, it's always crazy. You spend all this time preparing in these qualifications, and the men's World Cup qualifications is so much longer than the women's. So they could know by the end of the second game of the group stage, all that hard work
It happens
out the
a
window.
lot. Yeah, two losses and you're out.
Yeah, Ethan, do you have a specific game you're going to be keeping an eye on?
You know, because the red, white, and blue won't be playing in this tournament, it's kind of tough. I kind of found myself thinking, well, who am I going to be following? What am I going to be interested in? But I think I'm personally interested in seeing how Calvo and Costa Rica does against Brazil. I mean, you're playing the favorites, and be a big game for them, obviously. We'll see where they're at in that stage of the tournament. But I think that'll be fun to be able to watch. You know, one of my teammates out there against the best in the world.
Last thing, kind of bringing it back home, talking about the United States not making it to this World Cup. The kids are all right. Who watched the USA-France game? What does anybody take away from that match, if anything?
I think I've said this before. I think I'm more excited than a lot of American people about this next batch of young players that are coming through. I really am. That's why I think that the choice of coach is so important. And the sooner that Ernie and these guys...
You got to pick?
I don't know. Me personally, I think I would always go with an American. Mm-hmm. I think it's important. Mm-hmm. And I think that whether it be Greg Berhalter, whether it be Jesse or Peter Vermees. I think all three, for different reasons, would be really good choices. Be difficult for Peter now. He's just signed a new 5-year deal, I think. But I think that Greg would be a really good choice. I think he gets the American psyche, and he's done a good job. And Ethan will vouch for that, working with young guys who've come in and turning individuals into a really good team.
I mean, I was really excited with the result, obviously, partly just because, you know, even with the kind of lack of possession, just the fight, and really at times to really be clever about how we really, you know, kind of push back at them at key moments so they couldn't just have onslaughts of attacks and waves. But the one position that I think I was kind of nervous about for the future was the goalkeeping position. And then after that game...
Was that after you saw Bill Hamid, or...?
No. I just still didn't mind Bill, but
game?
I think just seeing him and then thinking about the young goalies in MLS now that are coming up, I think that got me really excited again, because I think it's a position we've dominated globally for a long time, and then I think it kind of went away. And then ultimately, you know, there's a lot of young players, whether they're in the U.S., in the MLS, or in Europe, that really stepped on the field and didn't want to show as individuals. They really wanted to collectively play for the team and play for the country. And I think that's going to resonate more than say, any of the individuals on the field that day. But at the same time, I wish I could be as excited as Adrian. I think we have a lot of honest, hard work to do still. I don't think we can just put guys on the field and say we're now going to compete globally. I really think, particularly with the announcement today, the soccer people in this country need to sit down and ask some hard questions about what our plan is, what our goal is, how we're going to use the growth of MLS, how we're going to use this amazing investment in the Minnesota, in the Twin Cities, $250 million stadium, massive investment for the ownership group, top down, for us to be here and have high-level soccer, how we're going to use that and extend that to this entire country to really say, hey, we have a plan now to become one of the global powers in soccer.
Did you have thoughts on the USA-France?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a fair performance and all, and I think a good way to end that trip, obviously, for those guys. You know, the question I will still ask is, you know, we talk about Christian Pulisic, and he's a very fantastic player, and he's, you know, some people are going to start to call him, he's a special player. Is he our Neymar or whatnot? You know, he's not there yet, but we're not creating, in my opinion, enough of those special type players offensively. I think, as Manny touched on, I think our goalkeeper position has kind of been, you know, our best position for the last 20, 30 years. And I look at some of the younger guys, you know, coming up. I feel like the center of the midfield is pretty solid. I feel like our back line, we've got guys playing internationally and playing at a high level already. You know, I still will question, you know, the front four. And are we going to be able to find a 10 that, you know, can you know, open a game up at any moment and be that difference maker? And I think that's something that we've missed over the last couple of years. I think, you know, Clint Dempsey did it for a couple of years, but we haven't had that next generation come up. And a lot of teams right now have several of those. And we have to continue to develop that kind of talent.
Well, and I think there are going to be a lot of questions for a long time. No one seems to have the true answer, and Ernie Stewart just getting hired as a general manager, trying to figure out even what it is that he is doing. What is his role? What kind of capacity is he going to be used in? I think everybody agrees that the United States has the resources to put the talent on the field. It's just a matter of figuring it out. And a lot of pundits in the media always talk about it's still about the development. It's about the youth, not just the senior national team. So I think, you know, maybe a long way to go, but the announcement this morning for the 2026 World Cup, which Allianz Field could very well be hosting one of the World Cup teams when it comes here in 2026. So although we won't have a game in Minneapolis, we could be hosting a team here in the Twin Cities that is in town for the World Cup, which I think is a really cool thing, and just continue to light the fire under not just Minnesotans, but even the Midwest region as far as the soccer culture here. Would you guys agree?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
And you've seen it from day one, and specifically here in Minnesota.
I mean, again, again, on the cusp of the World Cup, the cusp of us having 2026, on the cusp of what's happening in this community for soccer and what's going around this country. I mean, I'm excited about the tough questions, because there are answers, and there is such relevancy for soccer for us to really grow the game and grow it with resources and grow it with good people. I think have the right intentions involved.
And I think we all are excited about Allianz Field. It doesn't matter what it's going to be used for. We drive by it, we see pictures. I mean, it feels like it's just around the corner. So thank you so much for joining me today, guys. I appreciate that. I appreciate the time spent. It's a beautiful day to be out here on the patio, so thank you so much. And again, we'll be doing these panels throughout the World Cup. We'll have other guests on. We won't just have these three every time. We'll have Amos and Chris will be joining us as well. Players throughout the World Cup doing interviews in between games down here at Brit's Pub. So check us out on mnufc.com. And, of course, keep an eye on all the happenings in the World Cup right here on mnufc.com.